What better day to reflect on the state of Australian women's sport than on International Women's Day? And when you look at it at the moment, Cass, you have a look across the board. Have you ever seen Australian women's sport in a better position than it is right now?
Kicking major goals. No, aside from when we were playing. No. I mean, the best thing about it is there's now 7 professional avenues for little girls to play sport, which I think is fantastic. So it's not just your traditional netballs anymore. There's so many options for them. My daughter came home from daycare the other day talking about cricket and said only boys can play that. And I sat her down and gave her a right talking to because it is just completely different now, and it's so great to be raising a little girl in that environment.
And it used to be, if you wanted to make an impact in sport, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of it was, I'll be a cheerleader, I'll cheer for the boys. And now, as you say, I didn't realise it was as many as 7 professional avenues.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it?
The team sports in particular too. I mean, we saw the snippet there of Ash Barty, Liz, but you look at whether it's the Matildas, the Aussie cricketers this afternoon, and the list goes on too. You know, so someone will be not mentioned here, but it goes for, I guess that's the positive out of it, whether it's those professional avenues where we've seen netball go from strength to strength as well.
Yeah, look, I love it, but I'm going to put a bit of a downer on it. There's 2 things. There's so much more to do. Firstly, I can't wait for the day that we stop talking about women's sport as a thing, as a separate thing to sport. Because it's almost like saying, well, when the blokes play sport, it's sport, but when the ladies play, it's women's sport, right? So I can't wait to that day, and I think we're getting closer, but there's a few things we've got to address before we get there. There is no doubt that there is money pouring into women's sport, and that's the thing that is really interesting. I just found some figures for you. Between 2013 and 2017, corporate sponsorship going into women's sport increased by 47%. Now, that was the year before Suncorp Super Netball started, before companies like Suncorp, QBE started to pour money into netball. So things have gone up again since then. Viewership on socials and digital across this Cricket World Cup are up 1,600% from the last World Cup, right? So things are all going in the right direction. So if you're a player, it's great. I reckon where the big gap is at the moment is in leadership positions. So when you look across Suncorp Super Netball, 7 female head coaches, 1 male. You look across the AFL women's competition, there's 1 female head coach for all of those teams, right? So at the moment, the women's teams, I think, are seen as a stepping stone to get to the men's, and that's across a lot of different sports. So I think that from the players' point of view, there's more to go, and as the women generate more money, they'll get better pay packets. But I reckon the sports need to take a far more aggressive approach to getting women in leadership positions. That's the next frontier.
That is very interesting. If you were on a committee to select the coach for the Channel 9 netball team, let's just say professional team, and there were 2 equal candidates, would you definitely go for the female just on principle?
I see what you're trying to do there, and I reckon it comes before that, right? So you don't want to get to the point where you get 2 equal candidates and one's a woman and one's a man, and you've got to choose, and do I choose a woman because I need to choose a woman. You actually need to make the pathways through the sports so much easier for women, because I reckon women, and I've got a bit of experience in a couple of different sports where you see what happens is that the women get knocked off the pathway because then it's just made too hard for them, or they're deemed not worthy. So they actually don't get to the interview for the Channel 9 women's cricket team or netball team or whatever, right? So you actually have to make that, you have to change the whole tunnel of people coming through and make it fair for everyone.
Do you also see, Mark, too, that the men and the women, let's look at cricket or football, for example, when it comes to, say, the collective bargaining agreement and sorting out the pay. We saw with the men's cricketers coming in to bat for the women's cricketers too, to up the pay and to be working as a collective as well. Do you think that's another step forward to make sure that, I guess, in Liz's dream scenario in 5-10 years' time, that it's just the sport across the board rather than being spoken about as men's and women?
Well, to be fair to Cricket Australia, and I was a board director at the time, Cricket Australia have always wanted just the one pool. When the collective bargaining agreement is done, it's just one pool. They're all professional cricketers, male and female together. So that's something I think Cricket Australia have been at the forefront with. Cricket Australia have always pushed for gender equality of pay, and even if Australia win today, I think they're topping up the prize money by about $1.5 million bucks or something like that, should the Australian women win today. So I think Cricket Australia have been at the forefront of trying to get to gender equality, at least in pay.